Welcome to Quantum Leap. I'm your host, Toyin, Umesiri, and Happy New Year to you. Thank you so much for joining today's episode. Today, I'm bringing you a very special topic that is very current to the times we're living in, and also going to be equipping you on how to navigate the future of the world. You see, the future of the world is being created, systems are being retooled, we're being rebuilt. And so we as humans as well, we have to adapt and we have to become such as being able to navigate it in a creative, positive way. So today I'm going to be talking about creative consciousness, creative intelligence, and one of the most powerful things, and this is why I'm so excited about this topic and taking the next couple of weeks to unpack this topic more, is that I remember many, many years ago when I used to work at the headquarters of Walmart, Fortune 1, biggest company in the world. One of the roles I used to play in strategy was what I'm going to do today, which is evaluating technologies available and where the future of the world is, where humans are heading, where technology is heading, where commerce in general is going, and then taking all that data points, a ton of research, and then seeing patterns and trends and being able to layer on what do we do with this type of information, with this knowledge base. How do we extract useful data points, useful information as a company, right? Extracting meaning, extracting useful data points connected to your own goals, your own value as a company, and then using that to drive commercial results. So how do you take meaning from a lot of human activities, information, knowledge base available from all over the world, synthesize that, make sense of it, and then present a useful case to how to use information that is available. So today, what I'm going to be bringing you will be two viewpoints. At the highest levels, in the boardrooms, governments, at the highest levels with governments, what are we talking about there? What are we trying to figure out? What are we trying to unpack within the context of productivity? So when it comes to productivity, it's always been human capital optimization, your people, taking care of your people so that they can bring results to your company, ultimately bottom line results. So human ingenuity, human creativity, human energy, right? Harnessing it for economic development, harnessing it for business results. It's always been that, human resource management, all of those things. I also have a background in what we call ERP, right? Enterprise Resource Planning System. Well, everything that is available to you energetically, how do you optimize it? How do you streamline it? How do you position it in the most optimized way to get you maximum value for your investment? Okay. So that conversation is happening now. Now bring in the concept of AI. You see, there are a lot of technologies that have existed for so many years, but those technologies have existed, but the implementation, what we call adoption, the adoption journey of technology usually is what brings it into the marketplace mainstream. So for example, if you look at the evolution of, say, GPS, guidance positioning system has existed for so long in certain industry, but it came mainstream, right? So there's this concept of the penetration of innovation, adoption, journey, all of that. So there's a lot of technology that many, many years, technology exists, but the adoption is usually what creates a market, trading block, right? Where there's demand and supply, right? So if there's no demand, supply, people don't invest in becoming the supply. And that's really the balance between economies, right? You want to be a supply for what's in demand, and that's where you make money from. Commercialization of productivity, creation, innovation. Because without that commercialization, then it's an hobby or just research and development. But every research and development is looking to unpack useful information, useful technologies to humans, to as many humans as possible. So AI is also going through that journey. But we've also seen incredible amounts of adoption, enough that has gotten so much attention in the world. Everybody now understands that AI is useful. They've proven it. But then what does that mean to human productivity? Okay, within the context of how useful, how transformational, how impactful AI is to the entire human existence, everything will be impacted by AI, some form of artificial intelligence. Well, then what does that mean to humans that have always been the most productive side of existence? Humans have always ruled. Humans have always led. Humans have always been the productive force of planets where we exist. So within that is what I want to host a couple of series on, going deeper into what does it mean to you. What does it mean to you also in the context of whether you're a business owner, whether you're an employee, whether you're a leader, middle management, or you're really in the boardroom, exploring what this means to your company, shareholder value, all of those things. Because part of the conversation is, where is value going? Okay? Is that if you're in an industry where your value is 100% baked in to human productivity, how do you fit in artificial intelligence, and then what happens to your people? Right? Those conversations are happening, particularly in technology-focused companies. Right? So the things I'll share would help leaders, it will help middle management, and then individuals as well. So when it comes to making decisions, you could be making decisions on behalf of your company, your business, but also at a minimum making decisions for yourself. So one of the key things about the future of the world is the key factor would be each individual, not just the collective, each individual's ability to grow and adapt themselves will determine how useful, and I'm using that word very loosely. Let's change it to how impactful, because everybody's useful, everybody's valuable, but contribution into the marketplace. How valuable whatever you create is to your employer, to your business, or to your shareholders, your investors, really is the key. It's always been the key, value, right? What we create and what we produce. Who is it valuable to? How valuable is it perceived to who? Where's the market for it? What groups of people value what we've created enough to pay us for it, to invest in acquiring it? That's the whole point of commercialization, is that the supply invests to produce value, and then the demand sees the value, wants it, desires it, and desire is what moves the commercial center. What is also happening in the world of sales and marketing is an evolution of storytelling. How do you tell story about the value of whatever it is you're trying to sell? Storytelling has evolved because humans have evolved. Humans are demanding higher value because we've gone through a world where things that people would have seen as exclusive has become common. Okay? So what people used to invest in heavily, like, oh, it's so scarce, right? Because the concept of scarcity increases the perceived value. Like, oh, you can't find it anywhere. I have to have it now. It's not going to be here tomorrow. That approach of sales, of exclusivity, well, it still works. But what used to be exclusive is now common. So what is going to be exclusive next? Right? How do you create something completely new that you can say is exclusive in the world that we live in, when everybody has a cell phone to type and search? Where else can I find this right price? So also the power and impact of your cell phone. So all of these things are happening all at the same time. And so personal growth, personal evolution, personal journey to unpack a greater side of you, because if the old version of you produced a certain skill, a certain product, a certain service that used to be considered to be valuable enough, to be commercial enough, where you can sustain your desires, your commercial desires. if the value has eroded, right, people now don't consider that as exclusive. Who must you become to create something exclusive in order for you to commercialize it? It requires personal transformation. So this connects you to creative consciousness, connecting to the creative side of you that is never ending in its idea generation. You are an idea generating machine. When I say machine, you are always able to connect to a divine source of creative intelligence, and that power in of itself also connects you to the demands and desires of other creative beings. What do I mean by that? When demands shift, when desires shift, humans are still buying, humans are still consuming, but they can shift and transform what they want to consume. So when demand shifts and desires shift and the way humans want to live their life changes, all we have to do, those who are in the sales business, all you have to do is not to attempt to sell what is no longer in demand. What you have to do is you have to unpack more of your creative intelligence to then listen to what humans are trying to do now, who they're trying to become, and now tapping into how you can serve where they're going. So a lot of times, many people may not realize innovative sales and all of that is arriving at the future people are heading towards, but they may not be consciously heading towards it, but your ability to see patterns of where this ends, right? And then bringing the end into now, creating the future and offering it to those who want to arrive at that future. That's power. So that's why, coming back to the work I used to do at Walmart, is can you be prescriptive about what the future of the world looks like, how people are buying and selling in that future, and could we then create that future ahead of people arriving in the future so that we can be the vehicle that drives people into that future? That's what happened for online shopping, merging physical digital experience for the customer, is that if you can be the one to figure it out first, you know it's going to happen anyway, but you build it first and then you offer it and say, we can take you from here to here. That's where money is made, commercial. So think about that. So don't get stuck on now. Today was created yesterday. Tomorrow is going to be created today. So unpack your own creative consciousness, not just about today. You almost have to zoom out of this moment to do this really, really well, to create solutions of the future and then offer it to people to drive them into that future you've already seen, you've lived in, you know what it looks like. Because those who own the future are the ones who drive people, who drive behavior, who lead with feelings and emotions and motivate people. And once you can build that future and motivate people and sell people that, those are the people who win in the commercial activities of the world. You build the future, you own it, you invite people to join you on that journey, and then here we go. By being the leader, people get to trust you, people get to allow you to serve them, and then if they like the ride on that journey, if it feels comfortable, then guess what? They reward you for that. So how do you build the future? Okay, how do you build the future? And that's where you have to tap into creative consciousness, because there's chatter. Humans are talking. You have to immerse yourself in the conversations people are having in the marketplace that you want to play a role in. You have to intuitively collect that information and then take that into your private creative space and start unpacking. What are people talking about? Different points, and then connecting the dots. And always ask this question, what do they need that they don't know about? I call it the blind spot, right? Is that many times humans sit in conditions, but they don't have the words to explain why they're experiencing what they're experiencing. So they may be impacted by a lack of knowledge but they know they're in a space that is not ideal. However, it takes an expert to create awareness into what they don't know. So your creative consciousness, you can unpack it by asking yourself this question: what do people need to know that they don't know? And sit with that. Because this is where the expert value is that if you can offer people new, right? This is where exclusivity is. What don't we know that we need to know, that if we know it, elevates our being into higher realms of knowledge? That's always been the journey humans have been on. So when you personally ask yourself this question, what do they need to know they don't know? And then it's the map of, do you know? Do you have this knowledge? Do you embody this knowledge that creates value? Because value lives in such answering such question. What do they need to know they don't know? Or what do they know today that they need to see and explore for different dimensions and perspective? So certain times people have knowledge, they embody knowledge, but they are looking at that data point. It's like cube in the database, right? Massive amount of database. It's like you can see it from one angle, from one side of the cube. And your interpretation is based on this. But if you can shift people to say, well, you've seen that, that's right? Do you want to experience a different dimension of this world? Just shifting people a little bit to say, take on an identity, take on a role, take on a new perspective. You're going to experience this world in new ways. You're going to see something new about the same knowledge you embody simply by shifting roles, perspective, acting in a different way. That's another experience you can unpack for people. So you can shift people to see the same thing they already embody. Yes, I know this. Yes, I know this. But can you see it in a new way? Right? Can you see this topic in a new way? And so your ability to take people from the journey of knowing to the journey of seeing and gaining perspective. If you were this, could you see this? Right? Let me give an example. In training, a lot of times doctors have been trained to be doctors. So they function as doctors. But could you take them on a journey and get them to experience the patient's view of their world? So that when patients come into their spaces, they are not just handling patients as doctors, but because they understand the needs, the perspective, the unique experience of the people they are hoping to serve, maybe they will do their job differently. you know this work, right, where it's like you're the boss, you're the CEO, you've always been the boss. Okay, fantastic. You know what it feels like to be the boss, and you're running the show from there. Could you take a moment and spend that time still in the same company, the company you know, the company you love? Could you take an hour, 2 hours, go to the assembly line, serve there, immerse yourself in that experience? You're going to learn new things about the same company that you know. You're going to learn new things, and that experience in of itself expands your creative consciousness, because the next time you arrive back in your nice office and you're thinking about your company, you're not just going to think about it through the CEO lens. You will absolutely embody the knowledge you have absorbed on the front line. That's incredible value, because many people have adopted a role that locks them into a perspective, and they can no longer relate to the people they are trying to serve or the people serving them. So we all need this concept of shifting roles and adopting. If you can create that in your environment, soon enough, the creative intelligence, how your team will emerge, will be more unified, will be more, it's that the future of thinking and solutioning will be radically different because what people will be bringing to the conversation, to the design process, will not be the knowledge they've always had, but they're going to offer you the knowledge they've absorbed by taking on different roles and seeing different perspectives of the same topic. And soon enough, you unpack greater value just by exposing humans to different angles of seeing the same thing. That's something we can unpack right now. Seeing your world through the lens of another. It will allow you to connect deeply to the human condition, the people you're trying to serve, or the people serving you, or the people serving your customers on your behalf. You can take your business to the next dimension simply by increasing perception, right? The perception people have about other people will shift if you're able to understand more about the world other people are living in. The other thing that is very powerful that you can do is this concept of what role do you have to take on, and then how do you gain identity because of that role. This is something humans are able to do. Only humans can do it. You can change the role you are playing in the world. So for example, you may have gone to school and the education system, the old one that is being reshaped, was designed to train people, and then training them led them to take on an identity as an employee. Okay? So the identity of what does an employee do? What is expected of an employee? How is an employee rewarded? That's also changing, by the way. But we have to help people shape the expectation of what it means to be an employee today, because the school system, generally speaking, trained people to take orders, and if you do what you're told to do, you'll be rewarded based on the social contract. Just in general, it's loose, right? Depending on school system, all of those things, personal values, right? But let's just say, generally speaking, people were trained to suppress their creative consciousness, their natural connection to the divine spiritual side of them. Humans were massively trained to take in instructions and then to do what they are told to do. And that was the reward was tied to that. Your A, getting an A, was tied to, I pour knowledge, the teacher pours knowledge into you. You shake the knowledge. When they ask you questions, you pour it back. And then if you give the teacher what the teacher gave you, right? A, your A is guaranteed. If you repeat what you were told and you gave it back to them, the teacher will go, yes, you agreed with me. I like you, A. So your A was based on agreements with your teacher. Don't add anything. Just describe in different words what I told you. Well, that's changing because we took that into the world. And whatever the CEO says, whatever the VP says, whatever, your boss says, you agreed with your boss and you implemented. Creative consciousness needs to be unpacked because now you need to give power. It's not even to give power. It's almost to allow people to unpack the power they already carry within them. The power to contribute at a higher level that is not just order taking and doing what you said, but to offer the world what they really think, right? What is really lying beneath the surface, right? What they really know to be true, what they really know to be impactful, because we are humans, we are all humans. Many humans were made to suppress their creative consciousness, their creative power, their connection to the divine order of things, how things ought to really be. They were consciously or unconsciously not trained to unpack themselves or bring their best self to the workplace. They were encouraged to say, bring what you learned in school. But when you start unpacking, this is the way up. This is how you self-actualize. How you emerge is to unpack yourself. What God has given to you, what is natural to you, your gifts and talents. How do you bring that out and then mix it with existing knowledge? That's where the world will start seeing incredible new things. If you want to see new things always lie beneath the surface of human existence. Like, ideas abound in the creative space of humanity. So if the world, and as the world is navigating, if you would just ask your people, bring your ideas. Don't just do what we are telling you to do. And this was something powerful I experienced in an engineering company when I worked for a KitchenAid, Maytag, Whirlpool Corporation. Because it was an engineering organization, they actually had a technology that pulled idea from the employees. Where anybody, you could wake up in the middle of the night, you wake up, come to work in the morning, and suddenly you're like, brilliant, right? Creative, if only we added this feature. And what would you do? You go into the system that you can access 24/7, submit your ideas, put more thoughts behind it, explain it to somebody, and click submit. The engineers pick it up from there. And then if they find it interesting, also, by the way, they allowed people to vote. right? They allowed, so you can always submit your ideas into this pool of information. Other people viewed it and go, that idea. We start. Somebody should look at this. Somebody should look at this. So some form of voting system where collectively people, right, considered ideas emanating and emitting from human ingenuity. And then the engineers will be observing. Oh, wow, yes, right. So this was a system put in place in an engineering company that I really want to encourage as many companies as possible to adopt, particularly in these times. The freedom for humans to think about anything they want to think about, that they believe is of value, obviously, to their company, to their life, to other people. We need an idea explosion, right? And you'll be amazed what people will come up with. And then we need systems to capture those ideas and then give it visibility and then this collective consciousness. Very, very powerful, because out of it, you'll be amazed new ways of doing things, because humans are very, very creative beings. Naturally, we have ideas, we have thoughts, but the key is who is listening and who cares to listen, right? And so the future is going to be unpacking more of your higher self, the nature of your higher self. I'll continue to unpack it in the future episodes. What does your higher self do that your lower self does not? Lower self takes orders and says, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. Higher self takes authority and say, I value my thoughts, I value my ideas, I value it enough to contribute it to the world, to share it. And then just, not to be attached to it, but at least to offer it. Somebody somewhere may look at your idea and go, blink, blink, this is interesting. And so because we are all looking for something interesting now. So I will continue to unpack this topic in future episodes: creative consciousness, creative intelligence, how you personally can be unpacking yourself. One of the things I would encourage you to do is to take up an hobby. Start using your frame to create the cycle, the number of cycles you can explore, to idea, to productivity, to manifestation. Creating things, painting, all of these things that you draw it in your mind, you imagine it first, and then you produce it. If you can do that as many times as possible, you will start also a new cycle of trusting your ideas and creating. So I want to leave you with that idea. Create something, paint, take up an hobby. You will be tapping into an inner dimension of you that for so long has been kept. Right? People are like, we don't need that. But guess what? The creative world, everybody, every human is packed with creative power. And so if you can start unpacking yourself just through taking an hobby, that's a great place to start, because most people have been trained to just receive other people's idea and to produce it. But generating your own, right, will start helping you trust yourself and your inner reality, connecting with your inner thoughts and realities much more. And then if you're a leader, I want to leave you with this. Find a way of just collecting ideas from your people. Find a way of creating an environment of asking your people, what are you thinking about? Just simple. Keep it very simple. Something playful, something fun, something explorative, not too serious. Invite people to bring their ideas and share it. And I bet you something magical will start happening within your company and organization. Thank you so much for joining me today on Quantum Leap. And the next few weeks, I'll be exploring the concept of creative intelligence, creative consciousness, and how we all can go on this journey to unpack the higher self of our humanity. God bless you. Talk to you later. Bye.